This spring, I took a trip with UNICEF to Malaysia. Malaysia is a country located in Southeast Asia, bordered by Thailand, Indonesia, and Brunei. Islam is the state religion. Malaysia has had one of the best economic records in Asia. Today, Malaysia has a newly industrialized market economy, ranked 3rd largest in Southeast Asia and 29th largest in the world. My first impression when I landed in Kuala Lumpur, the capital, was that it's a rich country and why would we be visiting here with UNICEF? The Petronas Towers were built to show the world this country can compete with other industrial nations and to attract business. On the bottom level of the towers is a gigantic mall with the same stores you would see on Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills. Not really what I expected to see on a humanitarian trip. Malaysia does a good job with its own citizens. There is only a 4% poverty rate, most kids are educated, and the country is considered middle income, which means it's not a third world country. So why was I in Malaysia? Well, that 4% isn't exactly the truth. 1/3 of the population isn't Malaysian and isn't even counted. This means they do not have access to education or healthcare, as well as any other government benefits. Our trip focused on 2 main communities who are ignored by the government, which means the kids don't go to school or receive healthcare. UNICEF works to provide the most basic needs the government doesn't. The first community we visited was the Sea Gypsies, or Bajau Laut. The Bajau Laut are nomadic seafaring people living in seclusion and surviving by trading and fishing. The Bajau Laut are the 2nd largest ethnic group in Malaysia's Sabah region, making up 13% of the population. Originally from the Philippines and Indonesia, this boat-dwelling community see themselves as non-aggressive people who live in peace. They live close to the seashore by building houses on stilts or in handmade boats. But they are not counted. They have no birth registrations. They aren't Malaysian citizens even though they were born in Malaysia. The government ignores them so they have no rights, no school, and no healthcare. When I first met a group of Sea Gypsy kids, I asked the little girl how old she was. She looked at me with an empty face. She doesn't know when she was born or how old she is. Sea Gypsies don't give birth in hospitals and don't receive any kind of registration for being born. I felt very touched by these kids because they were so innocent. They didn't have shoes, they wore rags, and some of them had blonde streaks in their hair from zinc deficiency. Because they don't eat proper meals, many of them are stunted, which means they haven't developed in their brains and their bodies at a proper rate. They can never make up these lost years, and yet they are full of life. UNICEF has helped set up schools where these kids can learn the basics of education as well as receive 1 meal of porridge a day. Some of the kids pick up dirty plastic bags off the ground on their way to school to save some of their small rations to bring home to their siblings. In some areas, there are so many Sea Gypsy kids and not enough money to provide them with a proper learning environment. One school was just a tin roof on wooden stilts with 400 students visiting a day. I can't help comparing the beautiful lawns and buildings of my school with the dirt floor covered in trash, tin-roofed school of the Bajau Laut. Just a mile away sits a government-owned school for Malaysian children in the area. It doesn't seem fair the Sea Gypsy children don't get the same opportunities. The second community we visited was on a palm oil plantation. Malaysia is the world's largest exporter of palm oil in the world. Palm oil can be found in cookies, crackers, popcorn, frozen dinners, low-fat dairy, candy, soap, and cosmetics. Most workers on these plantations are immigrants from other countries. They are allowed to come over with their families, but their children do not have the right to an education. Tens of thousands of children are living on plantations without the opportunity to go to school. With no classes, many of these children help their parents on the plantation, essentially becoming child laborers. It costs $13 a month per student to provide lessons in core primary subjects, along with a uniform, 2 meals, and a salary for teachers. UNICEF is working with other humanitarian organizations and palm oil businesses to provide schools in the plantations. Right now, 10,000 kids are getting an education they never would be able to without UNICEF's help. What I liked the most about my trip was getting to spend time with the Sea Gypsies, singing with them, helping them learn, teaching them numbers and the alphabet. What struck me about these kids was that they're just normal kids. They were so friendly and warm despite their poverty. I loved just being normal with them. The kids would hug me, they would wave to me, they would bring me over to sit with them. I felt welcomed and even treasured. What surprised me most was that the government would let children suffer by not allowing them to be citizens. We have a lot of immigration problems in this country, but this trip made me appreciate America. If you are born in this country, you are American and have access to all of our benefits. My real heroes are the UNICEF staff, who don't get paid a lot but spend their time helping these kids have a better life. We all had fun together, and I also loved our travel group. In some ways, the trip was challenging, but because we were all together, we had fun. There were times of sadness and times of giggles. I left Malaysia with a feeling of gratitude I was allowed to go on such an amazing trip and could learn what others don't get the opportunity to see. I'm so happy I can share what I've learned, and I hope you'll be inspired to help.